Remember that really delicious beer that you drank? So many complex flavours in it, but you just didn't know how to describe it to other people. That's because you need to develop your beer vocabulary. Hi, I'm Joanne, the Beer School Lady, and I teach beer lovers how to taste beer with confidence and to develop their knowledge of the world's favourite beverage. So I want to tell you a little story about when I was learning about beer. I'm still learning about beer. I have drunk quite a lot of different beer now. I think I'm edging towards 4,000 unique different beers. Been drinking for a while, so you know, not in one day. But I really like interesting sours and dark beers, stouts, things that have got really complex, interesting flavours. So when I go into a beer bar and there's a couple of really interesting things like that on the menu, I have a really difficult time deciding which one I want. So often I'll ask the beer tender, you know, which do you recommend out of this fruited lambic with Brettanomyces or this peanut butter cup stout? And they'll just look at me and go, well, they're two really different beers. I know they're two really different beers, but I can't decide between the two of them. So when you are trying to talk to people about what you want from beer or the beers that you enjoy, when you're trying to explain what's in your glass, it's really important that you have good beer vocabulary, you've got good beer terms in your arsenal to be able to explain to them what you really want. So describing beer can be a bit of a tricky business. Often if you want to find out about a beer, if there isn't that much information about the beer at the place that you are buying it, or on the can or on the bottle, there are some bottles and cans that have got so much amazing information about the beers on them, and then some that have zero information other than the legally required ABV, etc. If you're trying to find out information, often a good place to go would be Untapped or Rate Beer, where people have put in what they think about beers. But how many times have you done that and it just says, oh, this one's really tasty, or really hoppy, really malty? What do hoppy and malty mean? There is a plethora of hops out there that can have anything from citrusy, stone fruit, tropical notes, all the way to minty, spicy notes. One person's hop is very different from the next, and one brewer's use of hop is very different from the next. So saying it's hoppy isn't a universal language. Equally, saying it's malty also doesn't mean the same to everybody. Some beers have got very pale malts in. I mean, all beer has malt of some sort in it to be able to create fermentable sugars. Some malt is very pale and is going to give you doughy, bready, crackery tastes and aromas. Some beer is going to have highly roasted malt in that's going to give you coffee and chocolate. They're very different animals. So saying it's malty doesn't help anybody either. So how can we make sure that you are able to describe what you love in a beer? You've got to begin by tasting beer. When we're tasting beer, we have to take in various different elements of it. We do want to look at the appearance. What colour is it? What clarity does it have? Is it very bright and clear? Is it hazy or soupy? What does the head look like? The head's really important on beer. That's capturing aroma, and a lot of aroma is in the taste as well. Is it a nice thick foamy head? Is there no head at all? Is it fizzy and disappears very quickly? And what about the carbonation? Are you seeing lots of lovely streaming bud balls, or is there just a little carbonation tiz? So that's what we want to think about with appearance for beer. Then we want to move on to our aroma. Aroma is really important when we are beer tasting. A lot of what we consider flavour is actually aroma. So when we take in the aroma, are we getting lots of citrus, fruity notes? Are we getting more cracker, bread, coffee, chocolate? Is there some unexpected things in there like tobacco, dried fruits, or toffee? There's lots of things that you can find out about a beer in the aroma. And then finally, we get to taste it. And there can be complex flavours, or it can just be very simple and refreshing. That is the beauty of beer. So we've considered how we're going to taste beer. We're going to take in appearance, we're going to take in aroma, we're going to take in taste. But what descriptors, what standard descriptors can we use that everyone will understand? For appearance, these can be very simple. Again, we're looking at colours. We're looking at what the head looks like. We can describe what something looks like quite easily. And carbonation levels. Are there lots of bubbles? Is it very fizzy? Is it quite smooth? Those are simple. And we can all describe those and put across what they are to other people. It's when we start getting into aroma and taste that it gets more difficult, because sometimes beer can evoke some really interesting emotions and memories. One of my favourite examples is you might have a beer and it might remind you of your grandma's perfume. That might be because it brings back some form of comfort. It might be in the situation you're in. It might be the aroma and flavour. But if you said to someone, this beer reminds me of my grandma's perfume, they don't know what your grandma's perfume smells like to you. They probably don't even know your grandma. They don't know what perfume she wears. You have to pick that apart and be able to say, what are the elements of that perfume? Does that in fact mean that the beer is floral? Maybe it's got notes of lilies or something like that. By having more universal descriptors for flavour and aroma, we can put across what we're getting from our beer. And the best way to do that is to equate the flavour and aroma descriptors to food and things that we can eat and smell. We still all have different experiences with food and different cuisines. Some people have tried all sorts of different worldwide foods. Some people are only very aware of what is local to them or within their country. But generally, food descriptors will be able to help you when you're describing beer. Hops we can equate to citrus fruits, tropical fruits. We can also have them related to flowers, because you've got to remember that a hop is a flower. They also have herbal notes, so start thinking about sage and rosemary, things like that. They can also have a light spiciness to them, depending on the region that they're from. For our malts, there are a wide range of foods that we can equate malt to. Thinking from the lightest end, crackers, bread, flour. In the middle, where you've got your more amber beers, you can see toffee, caramel, nutty, various different types of nuts, how you pick up those flavours of the nuts and the aromas of nuts. As we get darker, we're going into chocolate, coffee, roastiness, maybe even some burnt flavours. All of these we can equate to food. And let's not forget yeast in beer. Yeast will provide some interesting characteristics depending on the yeast that is used. In some beers, if they've used a lager yeast, they'll be very clean and you won't pick up anything from the yeast at all. But when we get into our ales, we can have spiciness, we can have banana, pear or green apple, and within that spiciness we can look at things like cloves, cinnamon, ginger. We might also get some dried fruits from the yeast, things like raisins and dark fruits, plums, sometimes even cherries. A really good way to work out these descriptors is to do what I call a sensory exercise. Gather yourself together some of the foods that these descriptors can come from. If you like your hoppy beers, then gather yourself some citrus fruits and some tropical fruits. Smell and taste them so that you know what mango really smells like to you, because we all smell and taste things differently. What does lemon juice smell like to you? What does the peel smell like? What's the outside of a pineapple like compared to the inside? Is the juice of the fruit different from the pulp or the flesh of the fruit? Take all of these in so that you understand how you pick these up. You'd be surprised how easy it is to confuse lemon and lime and mango and pineapple. The next time you drink something that is citrusy, pick out exactly which citrus fruit it is so you can describe it better to somebody the next time. Similarly with malt, you want to gather yourself some bread crust, some nuts, maybe some toast, some chocolate and some coffee, and take in those aromas so that you know how you pick those up. Yeast is a little bit more difficult. We're going to look at things like pear, green apple and banana, but gather yourself all of the spices in the spice rack. Smell all of these and see how you pick them up. Yeast characteristics are the most interesting and sometimes the most difficult to pick out. My top tip is to smell coriander, cardamom, clove and pepper. These are really interesting and you can find them in Belgian beers, sometimes in a German wheat beer. Being able to recognise these is really good for when you're getting into your yeast driven beers. I still go to the kitchen and grab the coriander every now and then to recalibrate my senses onto what it really smells like to me. Once you've calibrated your senses to these foods, then you can start using those descriptors in your beer reviews and when you're trying to talk about beer to other people. This is going to help you feel more confident in your beer tasting and help you to find the next beer that you really enjoy, because you'll be able to talk to people about exactly what it is in those beers that made you go, oh, that is delicious. If that all sounds like a bit much to you though, I've got you. I've got some support I can give you to help you develop that beer vocabulary. With my course, Build Your Beer Vocabulary, we will do these sensory exercises together, and then through a live tasting, we'll practice your newfound beer vocabulary and help you to be able to describe exactly what it is in your glass. Find out more via the link in the video description. And if you want some more beer tasting tips, make sure you check out the videos that are on your screen now.